Hi, welcome to my video. Today in my sketchbook, I tried using these beautiful fountain pen inks to draw my characters. Just a heads up, I'm not a native English speaker, so my voiceover might sound awkward and that I will definitely stumble over my words a lot. Still, I want to sharpen my English speaking skill, so I figured what is the least painful method to practice it? It's doing a voiceover in my own video. Hopefully, it's not too cringe to hear me talk. Anyway, I recently bought a pair of Diamine Inks and they are stunning. They are not waterproof as most fountain pen inks are, but I don't find that to be a deal breaker. The reasoning is because they are water soluble. It makes the ink spread easily when you add water to it, and it's pretty useful for wet on wet technique. You'll see that happening in later parts of this video. You can see on the top left there, I was holding my air dry clay sculpture of Whitkit, my character, who I also drew on this page. Blah. Since his face is made of wood, yet has this weirdly melted but hard quality to it, I always had a hard time figuring out how he looked in certain angles. It's hard to know where to place shadows and textures on his face just from my imagination alone. But now, with this sculpture, I have my own 3D reference, basically, in my own hand, and I can just turn it around whenever I need a more proper enlightenment over my boy. So, the star of the show, the inks. I got two colors from Diamine Inks, Aurora Borealis and Ochre, and they are both equally lovely. Honestly, if I have more money to spend, I would have bought at least 10 more colors from this brand because, man, these colors, every single one of them is so beautiful. Some has a lot more sheen than others, but that is not really important for me because I usually use these inks for drawing, not for the fancy calligraphy style. And from what I heard, most fountain pen inks that have obvious sheen properties can clog up your fountain pen much quicker than the ones that are not, so it's no big deal not having fancy inks for me. Although I can see now how this can lead down to inky rabbit hole of collecting more inks and more inks and more inks just because they are so pretty. Another thing that I love about this brand is that not only they're cheaper than other popular brands, at least the 30ml versions that I got, but the ink also performs so well on cheap paper. Visually, no feathering, no bleeding whatsoever. This is an absolute win for me because personally, I cannot afford to break a bank to buy specific or artisan papers for only scribbling and doodling purposes, which I always do. I treat my papers quite haphazardly. I doodle a lot for warm up, so I don't want to be guilty for spending so much money on paper that it will hinder my ability to draw more freely. So yeah, it's always nice whenever I can find affordable but still quality options like this. That being said, this doesn't mean I will stop buying more inks. To ink the line art, I used Tachikawa G Nib, also freshly bought since my old ones are pretty much rusted and their tints are splayed now, which makes drawing thin lines impossible. I also only recently learned that using isopropyl alcohol after every time you use your nib can really prolong its lifetime, because the enemy of nib like this is rust that came from water that still remains on the nib. So if you use alcohol, it can clean and evaporate any remaining water on the nib. So it prevents rust. Makes sense, right? I wish I knew this sooner. It's increasingly hard to find G nibs where I live, and I don't want to buy them online every time I have to replace them. Another thing that I want to note is the sketchbook that I'm using here. It's from a local brand called Scriblebook, and I think this might be my favorite watercolor sketchbook to date. I also have Moleskine sketchbook. It's a gift from my dear friend, so I still treasure it. But if I have to compare these two, I think I much prefer the Scriblebook more. There are two reasons for that. First, it's a lot cheaper than Moleskine. And second, this book uses Canson or Canson monofill papers. Never used them before, but even though they are only 200 GSM, which is pretty lightweight for watercolor, and they are just cellulite papers, usually regarded as the lower quality watercolor paper, they perform so much better than Moleskine. They don't peel up as easily and reliable enough for wet-on-wet technique. meaning watercolor or any water medium doesn't just dry up immediately after you lay them down. So you can layer a lot of watercolors and also blend colors more beautifully with each other. For the first few pages of the sketchbook, I practically abused the hell out of them, submerging them in water with how many layers upon layers of washes that I put down, but the pages still hold up. They do buckle, but it doesn't feel like I'm murdering the page. It's what I'm saying. So yeah, very reliable. If you are in Indonesia and you are in search of a dependable and affordable watercolor sketchbook, I highly recommend this one. I still can get over how pretty that ink looks when it's spread. I said that I equally love both of these Diamine inks, but I think the Ochre is my favorite just because it's so classic, very romantic even, like something you'd seen in a vintage sepia tone artwork. I think these Diamine inks have better flows than most watercolors, or maybe the paper is just that good for wet on wet technique. I'm not sure. Either way, it's awesome. I love blooming effect in water media. So, this is the result. I had fun playing around with these new inks, and I definitely feel like I did something new by doing a voiceover. It is my first time doing it, but I hope it's still decent, and I hope this video feels as intended as I want it to be. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.